Hey guys, tonight, let's do something easy, something slow, something that doesn't demand very much from you at all. Dim the lights, put the phone face down, get comfortable. Tonight, we're drifting back in time, way back, to a civilization that, according to textbooks, documentaries, and very confident YouTube thumbnails, simply vanished. As if everyone packed up at the same time, locked the door, and politely erased themselves from history. Which, of course, is not how human beings ever behave, but we'll get to that. Slowly. Tonight's story is about a place that built cities before most of the world had figured out paved roads. A civilization that loved baths, hated giant statues of kings, and somehow managed urban planning better than many modern cities, and then quietly faded away. No screaming, no fireballs, no dramatic last stand, just a long, awkward disappearance. So let's float back. Not rush. No chapters, just one long, historical exhale. We begin around 5,000 years ago, in a broad, dusty stretch of land fed by rivers that didn't care much about human plans. This region sits in what is now Pakistan and northwest India, though at the time, borders were not really a thing yet. People were more concerned with crops, floods, and whether their neighbors were stealing their goats. This was the Indus Valley, home to one of the world's earliest urban civilizations, and one of the most mysterious. They didn't call themselves the Indus Valley Civilization, obviously. That name comes from much later, when British archaeologists showed up with notebooks, opinions, and a strong desire to label things. The people themselves left behind seals, pottery, bricks, and cities but frustratingly few readable words. They had writing. Oh yes. Thousands of tiny inscriptions, but none of them have been definitively deciphered. So we don't know what they called themselves. We don't know the names of their kings, assuming they even had kings, and we don't know what they thought was important enough to carve into stone for the future, which is incredibly rude, if you think about it. The Indus civilization starts quietly. Small farming villages appear around 3300 BCE. People grow wheat and barley. They domesticate animals. They settle down, and then, without much fanfare, things escalate. By around 2600 BCE, large cities begin to emerge. Not messy, improvised cities either. These were planned, shockingly planned. We're talking straight streets laid out in grids, standardized brick sizes, drainage systems that ran under houses, covered sewers, actual toilets. 5,000 years ago. Meanwhile, much of the world was still experimenting with just throw it outside and hope for the best. The two most famous cities, Harappa and Mohenjo-daro, even their names are modern, borrowed from nearby villages. The original names are lost, which feels appropriate. Mohenjo-daro translates roughly to Mound of the Dead, which sounds ominous, but mostly reflects later folklore rather than ancient tragedy. Still, it sets the mood nicely. These cities were big. Tens of thousands of people lived there. They had multi-story houses, public baths, warehouses, markets. And yet, something is missing. No giant palaces, no towering temples, no colossal statues screaming. This guy was in charge. For a civilization this advanced, they were remarkably uninterested in advertising power, which is unusual. Humans normally love that part. Instead of kings carved into stone, we get seals. Small, square objects engraved with animals, symbols, and sometimes a mysterious horned figure sitting cross-legged. Possibly a god, possibly a priest, possibly just someone very into yoga. These seals were probably used for trade. Because yes, the Indus people traded. A lot. They exchanged goods with Mesopotamia, hundreds of miles away. Indus seals have been found in ancient cities like your Mesopotamian texts mention a place called Maluha, which many historians believe refers to the Indus region. So while Sumerian scribes were complaining about grain deliveries and bad copper, the Indus people were quietly running a sophisticated trade network. Without bragging about it, which is deeply unsettling behavior for an ancient civilization. Daily life in the Indus cities seems calm. Suspiciously calm. Houses were built around courtyards. Many had private wells. Bathrooms were common. Wastewater drained into covered channels beneath the streets. There's no evidence of massive slums. No obvious signs of extreme wealth inequality. No lavish tombs stuffed with gold. Even burials are modest. Bodies laid out gently. Few grave goods. It's almost as if they didn't think death was a great opportunity to flex, which again is not very on brand for humans. Art exists, but it's small. Tiny figurines. Carefully carved beads. Delicate jewelry. Nothing enormous. Nothing screaming for attention. This civilization whispers, and for centuries, it works. For about 700 years, from 2600 to 1900 BCE, the Indus Valley Civilization thrives. Cities expand, trade continues. Life hums along. And then, things start to change. Not overnight. Despite the dramatic title, history is rarely that tidy. Archaeologists see signs of gradual stress. Cities become less organized. Brick quality declines. Streets fall into disrepair. Flood layers appear in the soil. Again and again, the rivers that once sustained these cities began to shift their courses. And rivers, when they move, do not send warning letters. The Indus River system was unpredictable. Some branches dried up. Others flooded violently. The Gagahakra River, possibly a major lifeline, slowly withered away. Agriculture suffers. Trade networks weaken. Urban life becomes harder to maintain. People adapt. Because of course they do. Always do. Around 1900 BCE, the big cities start emptying out, not in panic, not in chaos, just leaving. Leaving people move east. They spread into smaller villages. Urban planning gives way to rural survival. Mohenjo-daro isn't burned. It isn't destroyed by invaders. There's no clear massacre layer. No piles of weapons. No dramatic skeletons frozen in terror. Just abandonment, which, frankly, is far more unsettling. Later generations would tell stories. Some claimed invaders swept in from the north. Aryan warriors, chariots, blazing, civilization crushed beneath their wheels. It made for a clean narrative. Too clean. Modern archaeology doesn't support a violent conquest. There's no widespread evidence of war, no layers of destruction consistent with invasion. The truth appears to be slower, messier, more human. Climate shifts, environmental stress, economic decline, the boring killers of civilizations. By around 1700 BCE, the Indus Valley Civilization as an urban powerhouse is gone. Its people remain. Their genes continue. Their cultural echoes ripple forward. But the cities fall silent. Streets fill with dust. Drains clog. Bricks crumble. And because their writing remains undeciphered, they cannot tell us what they thought about any of it. No angry letters. No desperate prayers. No nostalgic laments. Just silence, which leaves later historians to project, to speculate, to argue endlessly. Some want drama, sudden collapse, mysterious disappearance, but reality prefers long fades. What's remarkable is how much the Indus people got right. Urban sanitation, standardization, peaceful coexistence on a massive scale. And how quietly it all ended. No grand finale, no epic last chapter. Just people adjusting to a changing world, one generation at a time. And in that way, the Indus Valley Civilization didn't really disappear overnight. It simply stopped being what it was. Which is, perhaps, the most human ending of all. Let's drift forward now. Not rush, Just gently move along the timeline, because this wasn't the only civilization to fade like this. Not even close. And next, we'll float toward another society that historians once insisted vanished suddenly, until the evidence calmly, patiently, disagreed. But for now, just stay here, in the quiet streets of Mohenjo-daro, where the drains still run beneath your feet, and history, for once, isn't shouting.